So you're scrolling through Instagram at 2 a.m., and suddenly someone you barely know is posting a 17-slide story about their breakup, complete with screenshots and a Spotify link to a sad playlist. You sit there thinking, why do people do this? Why do we feel the need to broadcast our most personal moments to hundreds of people who probably just want to see food pics? Well, buckle up. Because the psychology behind oversharing online is way more fascinating than you think. It's not just about attention. It's about how our brains are literally wired to crave connection, validation, and yes, that sweet, sweet dopamine hit every time someone double taps our pain. Let's start with the basics. Oversharing is when you reveal way too much personal information in contexts where it's not really appropriate or necessary. Think of it as emotional exhibitionism. But instead of a trench coat, you're wearing a Facebook status. The thing is, what counts as oversharing has totally changed with social media. Our grandparents would never tell strangers about their anxiety or relationship drama, but now we're out here posting our therapy breakthroughs like their recipe updates. The digital age has completely redefined our boundaries around privacy, and honestly, our brains are still trying to catch up with what that even means. Here's where it gets interesting. When you post something vulnerable online and people start responding with comments, likes, and DMs, your brain releases dopamine. That's the same feel-good chemical you get from eating chocolate or getting a text from your crush. Essentially, social media has turned our pain into a slot machine. You pull the lever by posting something emotional, and sometimes you hit the jackpot with tons of engagement. The problem? Your brain starts craving that hit. So you keep posting, keep oversharing, because you're literally chasing a chemical reward. It's not weakness, it's neuroscience. But dopamine isn't the only player here. There's also something called the online disinhibition effect. Basically, when you're behind a screen, your brain forgets about normal social filters. You feel anonymous, invisible, and disconnected from real-world consequences. It's like being drunk, but instead of alcohol, you're intoxicated by the illusion of distance. You wouldn't walk into a coffee shop and announce your deepest insecurities to everyone in line. But online? That feels totally normal. The screen creates a psychological barrier that tricks you into thinking you're safe, even when you're actually more exposed than ever. Now let's talk about validation. Humans are social creatures. We need to feel seen, heard, and understood. It's literally hardwired into our survival instincts. Back in the day, being excluded from the tribe meant death, so our brains evolved to crave acceptance. Social media exploits this ancient wiring. When you share something personal and people respond positively, it feels like the tribe is saying, "You belong here." We're not just looking for likes. We're looking for proof that we're not alone in our struggles, that our feelings matter, and that we're worthy of care. It's validation on steroids. Here's something wild. Research shows that talking about ourselves activates the same reward centers in the brain as food and money, literally. When you post about your day, your feelings, or your drama, your brain treats it like you just won the lottery. Now multiply that by the instant feedback loop of social media, and you've got a recipe for addiction. Every comment is a little reward, every share is a mini celebration, and every reaction makes your brain go, yes, more of this, please. Oversharing isn't just emotional, it's biochemical. Your brain is basically getting high on self-disclosure. But wait, there's more. Oversharing also ties into something called trauma bonding. When you share your struggles online, especially the heavy stuff, people who've been through similar experiences respond. Suddenly, you're not just posting into the void, you're building connections with strangers who get it. This can feel incredibly powerful, especially if you don't have that support in real life. The problem is, these bonds are often shallow and temporary. They're based on shared pain, not shared growth. You get the emotional hit of connection without the depth of real intimacy, and that can keep you stuck in a cycle of needing to share more trauma to feel connected. Let's be real for a second. Some people overshare because they genuinely don't have anyone else to talk to. Loneliness is an epidemic, and social media becomes a substitute for real human connection. If you're isolated, scared, or hurting, posting online can feel like the only way to reach out. It's not pathetic, it's survival. The tragedy is that, while it might ease the loneliness temporarily, it rarely fills the void. You're screaming into a crowd, hoping someone will really hear you, but most people are too busy scrolling to stop and listen. It's connection theater, not real connection. Here's another angle. Oversharing can be a way of controlling the narrative. When something painful happens to you, posting about it first lets you frame the story your way. You get to be the hero, the victim, or the survivor before anyone else can define you. It's a power move disguised as vulnerability. You're saying, this is my truth, and you can't take that away from me. The problem is, once it's out there, you lose control. People screenshot, misinterpret, judge, and share. What started as reclaiming your story can quickly turn into exposing yourself to a jury you never asked for. Now let's talk about microvalidation. You know those little hits of affirmation you get throughout the day? Someone likes your story. Someone reacts to your post. Someone DMs you saying they relate. Each one is tiny, but they add up. Your brain starts measuring your worth in notifications. The more you share, the more chances you have to collect these micro hits of validation. It's like a video game where you're constantly leveling up your self-esteem. Except, the game never ends, and the rewards get smaller over time. You need more and more sharing to get the same emotional payoff. It's exhausting. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Oversharing online can actually prevent real healing. When you post about your problems, you get immediate feedback, but it's usually surface level. People comment with emojis, generic advice, or their own stories. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't help you process what you're actually going through. Real healing takes time, reflection, and often professional support. But when you get instant validation online, your brain tricks you into thinking you've dealt with it. You've performed vulnerability without actually being vulnerable. It's emotional fast food when what you really need is a home-cooked meal. Let's get into the dark side for a second. Oversharing can backfire spectacularly. Employers Google you. Future partners scroll your history. That emotional breakdown you posted at 3 a.m. becomes permanent evidence of your lowest moment. The internet never forgets, and neither do algorithms. What felt cathartic in the moment can haunt you for years. And let's not even talk about the trolls, the judgment, and the people who screenshot your vulnerability to mock you later. Oversharing online is like leaving your diary open in a public place and hoping only kind people read it. Spoiler alert, they don't. But here's the thing, not all sharing is oversharing. There's a difference between being authentic and being reckless. Authenticity is sharing your truth in a way that's thoughtful, boundaried, and intentional. Oversharing is dumping your unprocessed emotions onto everyone without considering the impact on yourself or others. The key is self-awareness. Ask yourself, am I sharing this to connect, to heal, or to grow? Or am I sharing this because I'm hurting and I need someone, anyone, to make me feel less alone right now? Both are valid feelings, but only one leads to healthy outcomes. Here's a psychological concept that explains a lot. It's called the spotlight effect. We tend to overestimate how much people are paying attention to us. You post something deeply personal thinking everyone will care, analyze, and remember it forever. But the truth? Most people scroll past within seconds. They're too busy thinking about their own lives, their own posts, their own validation seeking. Your oversharing moment might feel huge to you, but to most people, it's just content in an endless feed. This can be comforting or depressing, depending on how you look at it. Either way, it's reality. Let's talk about comparison culture. When you overshare your struggles, you might be hoping for empathy, but what often happens is comparison. People measure their pain against yours. They think, well, my problems aren't that bad, or wow, they're more messed up than I thought. Social media turns suffering into a competition, and oversharing becomes a way to prove you're struggling enough to deserve compassion. It's toxic. Pain isn't a contest. Your struggles are valid, even if someone else has it worse. But online, we've created this weird hierarchy of trauma where only the most dramatic stories get the most attention. Here's a question worth asking. Are you sharing to connect with others, or are you sharing to connect with yourself? Sometimes oversharing is a way of externalizing your internal chaos. You don't understand what you're feeling, so you throw it online hoping someone else can make sense of it for you. It's like crowdsourcing your emotional clarity. The problem is, only you can do the work of understanding yourself. Other people can witness you, support you, even validate you, but they can't decode your emotions for you. That's internal work, and it doesn't happen in a comment section. Now let's talk about boundaries. Healthy people have them. They know what's private and what's shareable. They understand that not every moment needs an audience. But social media has blurred these lines so much that many people genuinely don't know where their boundaries should be anymore. If you grew up online, you might have never learned how to keep things to yourself. Everything feels shareable because that's the culture you were raised in. Learning to hold space for your own emotions without broadcasting them is a skill, and it's one that more people need to develop before hitting post. Here's something fascinating. Oversharing can be a form of people-pleasing. You think, if I'm vulnerable and relatable, people will like me more. You use your pain as social currency, trading your privacy for approval. It's a survival strategy that worked in some contexts, like making friends in therapy groups or bonding over shared struggles. But online, it backfires. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone will handle your vulnerability with care. When you overshare to be liked, you're giving pieces of yourself away to people who might not even respect you. That's not connection, it's self-abandonment. Let's get practical. If you're an oversharer, how do you stop? First, pause before posting. Ask yourself, what am I hoping to get from this? Validation? Support? Revenge? Clarity? If the answer is anything other than genuine connection or healthy expression, reconsider. Second, find offline outlets. Talk to a therapist, journal, call a friend. Real processing happens in private. Third, set boundaries for yourself. Maybe you wait 24 hours before posting something emotional. Maybe you limit how much personal stuff you share publicly. The goal isn't to stop being authentic. It's to protect yourself while still being real. Here's the paradox. The more you overshare, the less people actually see you. It's like emotional white noise. When everything is a crisis, nothing feels significant. People tune out, they stop engaging. Your vulnerability loses its power because it's constant and unfiltered. Real connection happens when you're selective about what you share and who you share it with. It's about depth, not breadth. You don't need 500 people to know your pain. You need 5 people who truly care. Quality over quantity isn't just a cliche. It's the difference between feeling seen and feeling invisible. Let's talk about the illusion of intimacy. When someone shares something deeply personal online, we feel like we know them. But we don't. We know a curated version of their pain. We see the moments they choose to show, edited and framed for maximum impact. Real intimacy requires reciprocity, consistency, and trust built over time. Online oversharing creates a one-sided relationship where you feel close to someone who doesn't even know you exist. It's parasocial intimacy, and it's becoming more common than actual friendship. We're confusing exposure with connection, and it's making us lonelier than ever. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes oversharing is a cry for help disguised as a casual post. You can't say, "I'm not okay," so you post something vague or dramatic hoping someone will read between the lines. The problem is, most people won't. They'll like it and keep scrolling. If you're in crisis, reaching out directly to someone you trust is always more effective than broadcasting your pain and hoping someone notices. Social media isn't a suicide hotline. It's not a therapist. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can't save you. Only real human connection and professional support can do that. Now here's the flip side. Sharing your story online can be incredibly powerful when done intentionally. It can break stigma, build community, and help others feel less alone. The difference is intention. Are you sharing from a place of healing, or are you sharing from a place of woundedness? There's nothing wrong with being wounded, but sharing before you've processed can re-traumatize you and others. Think of it like this. You can share your scars, the lessons you've learned, the growth you've experienced. But sharing an open wound, that's messy, painful, and rarely helpful for anyone involved. So where does this leave us? Oversharing online isn't inherently bad or good. It's a symptom of how disconnected we've become in real life, and how desperate we are for connection in any form. The solution isn't to stop sharing. It's to become more conscious about why, how, and with whom you share. Build real relationships offline. Find people who know your middle name, not just your username. Let social media be a tool for connection, not a replacement for it. Your story matters, but it doesn't need to be everyone's entertainment. Save some of yourself for the people who earn the privilege of knowing you. At the end of the day, the psychology of oversharing online is really about the psychology of being human in a digital age. We're trying to meet ancient needs with modern tools, and sometimes it works, but often it doesn't. The dopamine hits, the trauma bonding, the craving for micro-validation. It's all part of being wired for connection, in a world that's more connected and more isolated than ever before. So next time you're about to post that 17-slide story at 2 a.m., just pause and ask yourself, is this for me or is this for them? And more importantly, will this actually help?